Welcome back. Well, have you ever considered being on a grand jury? Well, this is how you're going to find out about it. And I'd like to welcome a returning guest. She was here last year, the Honorable Martha Gooding. She's Superior Court Judge with Orange County, and someone who is actually on the grand jury as the foreperson, Bob Nickham. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Great to have you back, by the way.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I think where we should start is the same place we do every year, because people may not know what the grand jury is. We hear about it, and sometimes they come up in the news from certain cities and stuff, where the grand jury found this and that. So why don't you give us a brief overview of, at least in Orange County here, what the grand jury is all about?
Sure. I think most people, when they hear the grand jury or think about the grand jury, they think criminal matters.
Yes, they do.
Being presented with a criminal charge and being asked to determine, typically by the district attorney, whether or not to bring charges.
Right.
And that is certainly part of what the grand jury does, but it's a relatively small piece of what the grand jury's task is. By far, the larger part of what they do is to act as a citizen watchdog over the operations and functions of city and county governments and governmental entities, including things like school districts and special districts as well. Okay.
Now, do grand juries, depending where they are in the country or different states, have different functions?
Well, I really can't speak to other grand juries. I think generally the functions are the same.
Okay.
Again, here in Orange County, the grand jury will decide what issues it wants to investigate.
Okay.
And no one tells them this is what your task is going to be. They decide what they want to investigate. Then they do their investigation, they gather their data, write reports, and publish those reports.
Okay.
And the entity that is the subject of those reports is then required to actually respond to them. So it really is an opportunity to improve the workings of your government.
So would that mean if they hear about some improprieties of a county government official or supervisor here and there, or on the school board or something like that, they're the ones that, like, you know, we need to look at this further?
They could certainly do that.
Okay.
They could respond to complaints that they hear, or things they read in the newspaper that are going on, and they say that we think this deserves a further look.
All right.
They're empowered to do that.
So, Bob, you've probably been on, I think the term goes to May or June?
End of June.
End of June.
July 1st to June 30th.
So why do you think it's so important to be on a grand jury? Because you're giving up a lot of your time, right?
Right. Well, I think a lot of people will see the news or read the newspaper, and they'll hear about something and say, you know, that just isn't right, or I think something ought to be done about that. And then you sit and you drink your coffee and you turn to the next issue. But if you're on the grand jury, you actually have the ability to have an impact on those things that you hear about that you don't like, about the way that things are being run in Orange County, or in the cities, or in the special districts in Orange County. You can actually get in there, investigate, write reports, and have an impact, change the way that things are happening. And that's a unique experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And it's a 19-member panel, am I right?
It's about a 19-member panel. We start with applicants from, we hope, several hundreds of applicants, and basically winnow that down. We get down to about 90 applicants, and for those they will have background checks conducted by the Sheriff's Department. And from there we'll do some interviews and ultimately get down to a panel of about 25 to 30, and then literally we draw those out of a bingo machine. It's very high tech. And the 19 are selected, and the rest will be alternates.
And obviously, since you're here, are you on the selection committee?
I am.
Okay.
I have been for several years.
All right. Now, Bob, people are, who might be interested in this, the first thing they're going to consider is the time commitment.
Time commitment is substantial. It's a year.
Okay.
And it's 5 days a week currently. The grand jury creates its own schedule, but typically the grand jury and this grand jury work 5 days a week, and that's, in our case, 9 to 2:30 on Monday through Thursday, and then 9 to noon on Friday.
Okay.
And then we are also putting in additional time going to evening meetings of city councils or government entities that we might be looking into.
Okay.
So it is a substantial commitment of time, but the rewards more than repay that time commitment.
So this sounds like a really opportunity for someone who is not working full-time anymore or retired.
That's correct. Or
Okay.
somebody who can adjust their business hours such that they are available during the grand jury day and can conduct their other activities in other time frames.
What about compensation?
Compensation is really terrific. It's $50 a day. And mileage.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get rich working on the grand jury.
But that's not bad, really.
But, it pays for an extra cup of coffee or whatever.
And may I add, the court also provides free parking in the courthouse for our grand jurors.
We have the best parking
There you go.
available in the courthouse. So,
These are no small things. So.
What are the basic requirements?
Basic requirements: you need to be over the years of 18.
Okay.
Orange County resident, U.S. citizen, no felony convictions, and a very sincere desire to serve your community. And of course, you have to apply.
Yes, you have to apply. Very, very important. I'll get to that in just a moment. So I would think, though, most of the people that you have on the jury are middle-aged or a little bit older just because of the time? Or
I
do you
would
get
say
some?
that is probably
Okay.
true by and large. We've had younger people
Yeah.
apply to the grand jury as well. There's some other things that are not sort of hard and fast statistical qualifications in terms of the number of years you've lived that I think are very important. And one is you really have to work well as a team.
Yeah.
The grand jury works by committee. They work as a team. They investigate and I think prepare those reports as a team. So you really have to have that ability. You need to have the ability to work with computers. Now, we don't mean coding,
Right.
but you do have to be comfortable because communication is done by computer and so is the writing of the reports. So that's an important thing as well. And we also look for people who don't come to this process with a real personal agenda.
Okay.
That's a different thing than saying, I have a sincere desire to improve my county government, city government,
Yeah.
and really have an impact. So if someone has a particular gripe with their school board on a particular issue and says, by
This is how
golly,
I'm gonna
this is
get
how
it."
I'm going to get it,
Yeah.
that's not really the best way to go about it.
And hopefully, Bob, that comes out during the interview process. What is that process? You went through that, not probably 6, 7, 8 months ago, right?
oh, yes. We were interviewed by a couple of judges and background checks. The Sheriff's Department came out, talked to us, talked to the neighbors to see if odd goings on had been noticed, and then were fingerprinted, background check, credit check. So there is a substantial
Wow.
checkup before somebody gets onto the grand jury.
So at what stage do you get where the checks start to get where you're asking the person's neighbors? Is that when you kind of call them down to the final 50 or whatever it might be?
Probably a few more than 50,
Okay.
but it definitely is not on every single applicant that we receive.
Okay.
But it's a long application period. So the current deadline for submitting applications is January 26th.
Right.
And the grand jury will be seated as of July 1st. So
Okay.
we have a fair amount of time to go through that process. And it is a time-consuming one involving a lot of personal interviews with
It should be.
several judges, and it should be. This is
Yeah.
a really important task.
Yeah. And Bob, what have you found to be some of the most rewarding aspects of it?
Getting to meet some of the key players in the Orange County government, getting to share ideas with them. They come and talk to the grand jury. We get to ask them, what would you like to see done differently? Because the grand jury has the ability to investigate and write reports, and those can make a difference. For example, there's going to be a new animal shelter in Orange County,
Right.
and that is a direct result of the grand jury having in past years looked into the conditions at the animal shelter and
Oh.
saying, this is not adequate. And the Board of Supervisors read that report, recognized it, and funded a new animal shelter. So
Wow.
getting to
I
exchange
never would have
ideas-
thought that would have been part of the grand jury.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, but
Yeah.
the grand jury has the power to look into all aspects of the county government and of the city governments. And when we find things that need to be different, or when we've talked to people who've come into the grand jury and say, here's how we think things could be better. If the grand jury concurs in that, then there can be progress made on things that are of interest and that matter to Orange County citizens.
During the interview process, Judge, do people have to have a basic understanding of county government, or can they come in just, I don't know much about how the county works at all, the different divisions or anything like that?
I think a lot of our applicants don't come with a history of experience in county government or city government. We have enormous diversity in terms of backgrounds of our grand jurors, and that too is a very good thing.
It is.
So no, we do sort of hope that people who come and apply have at least a basic understanding of what the grand jury does, and that certainly is available online in programs like this. We do try to do some outreach and get the word out so that people understand what it does and perhaps will consider applying for it. But no, they don't have to have any experience in county or city government at all. In fact, Bob, you should give an indication of the variety of former professions that are represented on our
the
jury.
current grand jury consists of, for example, we have surgeon, career military officer, several engineers, someone who has worked for the court system, who knows the court system. It's just this wide variety of folks. And that really, as the judge says, is a strength, because some people know how government works because they've worked for a government entity. That's helpful. Some people have no experience with government, and they're surprised to see how certain things work. And that's good too, because if you are part of a system for long enough, you're not surprised. When you're outside the system, you come in, you can be surprised, and that can be beneficial to open new eyes.
Yeah, maybe they even come up with they're going, why is this being done this way? Maybe we should look into it.
Questions that might never occur to somebody else.
So the application is done online, correct? The initial part of it.
It can be done online. If people are more comfortable, they can call or I think email, and we will mail them an application. So they can actually fill it out by hand. Many do. It's just a matter of what they're more comfortable with, but you can certainly do it online. That's very easy to do. Okay,
and the website, ocgrandjury.org, very easy to find. The number is on the screen that you can call as well. If you want to do it that way, 657-622-6747. But I encourage you, if you have the ability to go online first and go on the website, and front and center, they have the application process there. You can find out what the grand jury does, see if it's right for you. It is a commitment. It's 1 year, and as Bob said, it's several hours a week, but the rewards are just tremendous. I've known someone who from this community who was on the grand jury for a year and just said it was just a wonderful experience.
Without exception, the people that I speak with who have served on a grand jury say it was one of the most rewarding things they've ever done.
Oh, one other question that I wanted to ask. And I'm sure this is a question that some people might ask. They might be looking at, well, I would love to do this, but midsummer I'm going on a cruise, or what about when the holidays come up? How does that work if you cannot make it there for a couple weeks, or do you have the holiday seasons off?
There is a break at the holiday season that the grand jury votes themselves. Other than that, for family emergencies, we can make provisions, but basically somebody applying for the grand jury should realize that it is a year commitment.
Okay.
So if this is the year you've got a long planned cruise that's going to take you away for a month, this may not be the year to apply, but this happens every year.
Right.
So maybe next year is a better year.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Nice to meet you. Judge, good to see you again, as always. I'm sure we'll see you again next year as well. I hope so, too. It's the ocgrandjury.org. You can get some information there. Remember, your initial application must be submitted by January 26th. We'll be right back.